Hi, this is Joni McGary. Thanks for tuning in. Today I'm thrilled to welcome my friend Monica Perez. Monica is host of The Monica Perez Show and co-host of the Cognitive Dissonance podcast with her Voye Morich and Parallel Mike. Links to both shows are in my show notes, and I highly recommend you give them a look. Monica is somebody who has a giant brain and a terrific set of research and analytical skills. She is always seeking the truth beneath the narrative, and she does so in a way that transcends any right and left narrative. She does not get caught in that web. She also has a really bright optimism for life and a great sense of humor, and those are qualities I really find compelling and admire. So I've invited her here to help me answer my question, how do you live well during the age of lies? So without further delay, please help me welcome my friend, Monica Perez. Hi, Monica. Good to see you.
Joni. Hi, it's great to see you too. Thank you for inviting me.
Well, and thank you for being what I'm going to term my podcast doula. For my listener or listeners, Monica has encouraged me to do this, and I'm so glad to have her. And I'm glad to have her because I think she is uniquely positioned to help me answer the question, how do you live well during this age of lies? Monica, you've been at this for much longer than I have. You have the scales dropped from your eyes at a much younger age than they did for me. So, you've been approaching this for a while. What's your secret? How do you do it without getting embroiled in the right-left paradigm? I mean, you're immersed in news all the time, but you don't absorb it.
Well, I didn't expect to. I wrote also, you told me what we were going to talk about, and I gave it some thought, and I wrote stuff down, and I didn't write down what my answer to that question is. And it happens to be both of my parents. So when my mother was basically an insomniac and an avid radio listener. And she also watched Fox News. That was her, that's her sector. And when I got the radio show, which was after my father died, he would have loved it.
And because I didn't put it in your description, Monica was on a major radio show for 8 years in the Atlanta market, right? And you were in the spot that Rush Limbaugh occupied during the week, but you had the Saturday slot.
Yes. So the great advantage of that was that I had a lot of callers, a lot of listeners, but I also had this amazing program director who would teach me about how to do radio. And a lot of it was about generating calls and answering calls. So I'm sad that I don't have that opportunity anymore. And most of that was about people who didn't like what you were saying. Like that was another skill you had to develop. And that's what you get from being on terrestrial radio. Podcasting loses all of that.
Yeah.
Which is too bad because I did develop the skills eventually. But when I got that, so my father would have loved it because he was an old time Ron Paul supporter. He was cared about the Bill of Rights, and he always had his eyes open. I have a book from him after he was in the Navy during World War II. And I have a first edition book from the 50s with his penciled marginalia called Backdoor to War, where FDR was basically playing solitaire, where they tricked him into bombing Pearl Harbor and not warn the people in Pearl Harbor. So my father knew that there were conspiracies. He was totally against the UN. He recognized all these control mechanisms.
He was way ahead of his time.
Way ahead. So he really understood it, and he told me about it. And this was before the internet. I remember him seeing the internet for the first time, and the first thing he did was look up his destroyer escort from the Navy, and just was amazed that he could connect with these people, see what they were doing. But anyway, so he prepared me for a principle, so when the Iraq war happened, or when we started bombing Saddam Hussein after 9/11, he was completely against it. This is like an old white guy, Fox watcher.
Mm-hmm.
And he just was this is absolutely unjustified. There's very few reasons for a just war, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, well, but he's Hitler. And he's like, how do you know? What are you talking about? So he really prepared me to see the truth. And my mother, when I was on the radio, she just said to me, if you cannot stay positive, don't bother. And I said, Mom, there's no possibility to stay positive in the news. She said, well, find it or don't bother. And this is when I was blown away. Since I was a little kid, she's like, you should be a TV anchor. And I'm like, really, is that? And then she told my sister, you should marry Keith Hernandez. I'm like, he's a professional baseball player, but he's single. And
Oh,
I'm like,
that's funny.
you're pie in the sky, you know? And when a friend of mine asked me to do like an audition on the radio, my other friend, it was just straight out of Seinfeld. Because I was thinking, what am I going to do with my time while I'm like raising little kids? I need something for my mind. And it was just like straight out of Seinfeld. She's like, radio show. Why didn't we think of that? You know, like working for the Yankees. Why didn't we think of that?
Right. Well,
So, my mother was excited about it, but she said would not be worthwhile. And I had to really work at that. And
to get
it's
the
actually,
positivity.
and it's sunk in because I had to find the real answers. That's not fake. It's real answers. And my answers ended up being her answers. So,
Well, that's so you seem to have gotten your true north from your dad in terms of, like he didn't oppose the war because he was on one side or the other. He opposed the war because of his first principles, because of what he believed to be true about how humanity should be, how we should operate. And then and that's what I see in you when you approach these situations, which are more and more highly fraught, right? Because the propaganda machine, the AI, the social media, it's really honing its ability to incite us and divide us and to make us respond to something and feel something. And you seem to be able to really study what's happening without taking all that in and becoming part of it. You transcend it. And like your mother said, you have to be positive. You found a trick to make that happen. And I think that's a tough trick, especially during these times, because it seems like so much is negative and so much is deeply corrupt and wrong. I know for me, things that I thought were bedrock and true, I don't stand on terra firma anymore. Like I'm kind of reeling from all that. And I find that in itself to be deeply disturbing. And it's hard to find, how do you be positive throughout that? And you have honed that skill. And I don't think it was just because your mother told you to. You must have found a practice to help you do that.
well, I mean, there are a couple of things, just common things, and some of it's born of experience, of all the hackneyed phrases you could pick out of the world. After experience, some you find are true and some you find are not true. So the serenity prayer, I mean, that's
Right.
really true. Like you really need to change the things you can, accept the things you can't, and tell the difference. And that constant screen barrage of Palestine, for example, where your heart has to bleed for people that you don't know, that's coming across to you on a medium that has lied to you before. And you can protest and stuff, but what you really want to do is feed those babies, wash them, hold them. Like that's what you would do if it was in your world.
Right.
And you can't. So you can't make yourself crazy, but you can go rock babies at the, unwed mother's home or whatever. Like you can do that stuff. So I think that's a discipline to understand what you can and can't change, and how you can kind of redeem yourself for the things that are done in your name, I guess.
So that's a really interesting concept, to like take a situation that is far away from you where you can really have zero impact. I mean, you could give money, you could protest, you could do a lot of things, you could raise awareness, and those things are not nothing and they do help. And I hadn't really thought of it this way before, but to say, okay, you can rock babies nearby. Like you can take that same impulse and apply it to something near you, which I think it's not as glamorous. I mean, I think a lot of people don't feel that impulse because it's easier to just be outraged at something virtual, right? It's sort of be in that matrix, or to throw your hands up, or to feel despair rather than launch into action with the one thing locally, maybe.
And it feels like it's a waste of time, like it's not important enough, and it doesn't make as much of an impact.
God,
But it makes an impact. So my husband's like, we need to start like a school for Downs kids or whatever. And I'm like, I'm freaking exhausted from that life
Well,
so far.
tell us more about that, because
Yeah.
not everybody would know that you have
Yeah.
a child, or a
So
grown-up
now he's an
child,
adult.
grown-up
Like my
man.
first child, yeah, my adult son, he's 22 and he has Down syndrome. And now he's extremely high functioning, which was a problem for a long time because he could take your house down. Like I found him, um, I found him once. I mean, he would escape, but I've probably told you the
Escape.
story because it's so
Like,
funny. Yeah, they call it eloping. I'm like, you're not like he's in jail. I'm like, you're in jail. No escaping. And when he was a little kid, he would do things like crawl up the bookcase, like, and so you'd have to have everything secured. You'd have to
yeah.
have locks at the very top of your door. One time I was so sick. I had like a stomach bug and had to go to the bathroom, and I came out and he had taken my beautiful like bedspread. He'd taken all the books and like pictures and everything from my dressers. He put it on in that big, like made like a pouch out of it, and then he poured my coffee all over it. He's like, look, I'm making soup or whatever. And I was like, and another time I found him in the middle of the night. I heard something and he was in the kitchen snapping all the wine glasses in half. And
He has a
look, mom.
really creative impulse. I
Yes, so
mean,
he's super smart. That's the problem. He's
yeah,
super smart, but now it's settled down so that he can do a lot of things on his own. I have to monitor him constantly, but he's more like a 10-year-old than,
yeah.
and that's fine. But when he was little, like I would, if we ever went on vacation, which we rarely did with the kids, I'd have to get one of my siblings to watch.
Well,
I would
because it's not a vacation with kids.
no, and you couldn't be safe, so I would have to sleep across the door. So we'd have to sleep in the same room in the hotel room, but I'd have to sleep across the door. Otherwise he could get out. They just, I mean, he would find a stool or whatever and stand there. Could get out. So I would have to do stuff like that. When he had his own room, he would take his mattresses off, put them in front of the door, and then pee on them. I was like, why the fuck are you doing that? Like, and I couldn't get in. So
You have stamina. I mean, I
it
can
was
see
crazy.
but I
Yeah.
can see like the impulse to, when you have a situation like that, want to make it into something bigger. Like, we need to do a school.
Yes.
And it's the
Right.
opposite
Yes.
of the other impulse, which is, I think you're really onto something. You do the thing that's in front of you, regardless of the bigger thing that's going on all around you. I mean, I think we all do what we can in that situation. And again, I'm sort of focusing on that in this conversation because I'm trying to figure out, again, what can I do? How do you how should a person be in this environment? Like, during the pandemic, I was kind of inadvertently called off my sofa because my son was going back to school and he had to take a booster. And it wasn't that I didn't want him to take the first one, but I thought, this is a bridge too far. And I was, it almost had an energy of its own. And I ended up working like on a national basis to help end the college mandates. Well, that work is not in my, it's not right in front of me anymore. And that opened my eyes to so many other huge problems around me. And I'm no longer the person, I don't have any expertise to give to censorship or, the tech revolution, the wearables catastrophe, and all of those things. And so my question keeps becoming, what can I do in my own small life that's meaningful, that helps the world and that helps my family? Again, these are really basic questions.
What you did was huge, in my opinion. I'm not going to blow smoke, but it was huge. It was helpful to me personally. It actually gave me real tools as well as strength. And
That's
I mean,
great to hear.
yeah,
I mean, I think it was really important work, and it did help a lot of people. We networked thousands and thousands of parents and students.
so close. I mean, it was, I told you the whole knockdown drag out of a problem I had with one of my kids going
sure.
to school. I won't get into it, but I was very armed and was successful, which surprised both of us that I could succeed. But I really saved my kids, I think, some real pain. And just on Saturday, I wasn't in town, but my son, who has Down syndrome, was. So I wanted to tell you about our bowling. It's so minor that it's worth talking about.
I love to bowl.
Yeah, I mean, it's a funny little example, but I was trying to find this girl in his class. She used to love BTS or whatever. She was the cutest thing. You could bear like
What's
the
BTS?
Korean pop.
Oh,
boy
BTS.
band, boy band.
Okay.
Not BTS. So I
I don't
was
know.
looking for her because we were going bowling with a bunch of kids, and I couldn't find her name or whatever, but she was so adorable. I loved her so much. And I got a notice that she died. 22 years old. She was in my son's class, and she
Oh,
didn't even have Down
Monica.
syndrome. She had like autism, probably vax
Mm-hmm.
induced. And 22-year-old
Oh,
died of a pulmonary embolism.
oh, that should not happen.
And I really can hardly stand it. I'm gonna have to. I'm gonna write to the family there. I can't help but think that there's a good chance
Sure.
that she was vaxxed to the max. And
Yeah.
so it was life saving. I'm sure you saved lives that way, and that's huge. And I hadn't thought about it as being in front of you, but this is very important because what I was taught, because my parents focused a lot on corporal works of mercy to do stuff like visit the sick.
You
And
have a deeply
yeah,
Catholic background.
yes, and I'm
You
not
just,
particularly, like, I go to mass and I try to do all these
mm-hmm.
things. I'm not worshipful. Like, I don't like freaking mystically commune. It's hard for me to just sit down and
Does the church
pray.
instruct one to freaking mystically commune? Because I'm not Catholic. I never heard that
Yeah.
either.
Well, we
But
are allowed to drink and use vulgarity. We can't curse or
you.
swear, but we can
Okay.
use vulgarity.
No, but go
So
on. So I know you do, but you are
I was taught.
observant, right?
Yeah,
Or
exactly. So I was taught, and I struggle with faith, but it grows. Like, I've been told, don't give up, and so I try. And I could never say the rosary, and I recently discovered a way to do it because there's one with like a bunch of meditations which are intellectual because they tell the Bible stories, and I'm like,
Mhm.
okay, I can focus on that. It's really hard for me to worship, but I was trained to look for opportunities to do these corporal works of mercy. And that's really basically to just see if you see somebody on the street who doesn't have shoes, if you're wearing flip-flops, give them the shoes, keep driving, don't
Yeah.
have to chit chat, whatever. And it's no big deal. Nobody cares. Like, it doesn't really hurt Americans. Like, definitely have extra flip-flops. But my son got mad once because I was like, hey, you got a beer? Like, that guy's stringing. I was like, you're gonna give him a beer? That's his problem. I was like, yeah, because I'm not gonna keep him from ever drinking beer again. But it's 100 degrees out. Give him a beer.
That's
It was quite scandalized. But my point is that it's what's there for you. So the only thing, and I think you can only do what you can do. Sometimes you need help, and sometimes you can help. Sometimes it's big, like what you did, and sometimes it's small. So I just had this little thing where I kind of fell into it, and it's nothing. It's taking kids, meeting parents. I'm not even paying for it. They're paying, meeting parents with their kids one Sunday a month for an hour and a half to bowl. And I cannot tell you how many of those parents have just been like, thank you so much. Thank you so much. This is the only time my kids get to connect with other kids like them. I get to relax and
wow.
sit with other parents. It's a Sunday afternoon where we're just absolutely pulling our hair out by the end. Because a lot of these kids need attention, but they pay attention to each other. They're contained in the little thing. There's one parent bowling in each lane. It's like, no, and fair amount of parents like to bowl. So they'll bowl.
Mhm.
The other guys will sit at the bar, whatever. It's such a minor thing, and I would
But it's not
never.
such a minor thing. It
But
just you thought it was.
and it was just there in front of me, and I was like,
Yeah.
I could put a little extra effort. It's super stressful because sometimes I have like 4 of these kids in my car, and they're like
Sure.
burping and being gross. I'm like, I hate mouth sounds, and there's somebody's chewing gum with their mouth. I'm like, ugh. They're like huge kids. They can hardly buckle, and I'm nervous because I don't want to drive all these other people's kids around. But it was actually born of, I knew quite a few people, 3 or 4 people who one of the parents died of these kids, and a 20-year-old kid who has Down syndrome, that's an orphan forever. The other
Right.
parent has to take care of them forever, and you just don't realize that, and they need a break. So it was just a minor thing, but I was aware of it because that's what I was taught, to watch out for other people's needs. And that's why not like other people's needs, like a bleeding heart liberal thing.
Right.
Somebody
Right.
got, does that person have a cell phone with a flat tire? That's fine. If they don't,
Right.
so my brother has a great story. My father would not stop for the good looking chick with the flat on the side of the road, only for the really gross, overweight chick. And my brother's like, what's the point? It's like,
He knew
people are going to
somebody
stop
else
for the good
would.
looking chick. Yeah. You got to look for the ones who really need it. And in the welfare state, you're trained not to watch out for needs, and you're trained not to care about your community. So I have this community, which is unusual for LA, of people who have Down syndrome. And so that's easy for me. But what you can do, it gives you satisfaction. It models the behavior for your kids, and it gives you a little credit in the bank. So
Mhm,
when the
mhm.
fires happened and I really needed help.
Well, and just to stop for a second,
Yeah.
Monica's whole town
Yeah,
burned.
I know. This
Um,
2025. Oh my
but
gosh.
her
This is
house
a
stood,
crazy
so
year.
she
Yes.
she she almost lost her house and did
Yeah.
indeed lose a lot of your community, not the people, but
Oh, yeah. I
you are
mean,
living sort of
almost
in a
all of it. Yeah.
Mars-like hellscape.
It's crazy. What's the moon
And
now?
yet
It's
and
turning into
yet
farmland, which will be nice for a little while.
well, they won't probably longer term, but and yet
Looks like
she has
farmland.
kept a positive attitude. And also, you've taken time to try to discern what's really happening behind the narrative with the fire, which is something I don't want to get too far into here, but I'd love to have another conversation about that because it's very useful to have people on the ground reporting firsthand what's happening versus just hearing about it virtually, because everyone's got an angle.
And there's a lot of disinformation. I'm like, yes, there were absolutely no laser beams from outer space. None, zero.
Well, that's good. So I don't
No
have to
blue
worry about that.
roofs. Yeah. I mean, I don't know what happened in Hawaii because I wasn't there, but I'm absolutely, and people would argue with me, like, that's what happened. Like, I watched that house go up in smoke, in flames, and I watched that tree not burn, and I can tell you why.
Right.
That doesn't mean that there wasn't a lot of intentional dereliction of duty in
Right.
backstory, but yeah, I could tell you what I came up
Yeah.
with when the time comes.
But what you're saying is like it just puts credit in your bank,
Right. So
you know.
I needed some help, and I had to cancel things, and I hate being a flake. I'm not like the LA type. So people don't fall in love with me right away. It's not, they think I'm a Trump supporter, first of all, which makes me fucking crazy.
I know if you're
Yeah.
not a lefty liberal, people just
Yeah.
assume you love Trump. Like it's there are only two things: you can have
Yeah.
Trump derangement syndrome, or you can be
Yes.
totally full on
MAGA.
MAGA, which
MAGA's
are two
hard.
sides of the same coin. But you
Yeah.
know they really are.
I
It's
criticize him, but I don't criticize him about the right things.
right, and you don't criticize them hard enough. So
Yeah. Well, I'm getting nervous
no,
because
I'm
people are
not you.
getting mad at me. Like on, so like, did you?
Ah,
I don't know if you noticed that. Like, I don't know if it was a bot or what, but somebody just calling me names and all that on
oh,
to the point it was so over the top that it made me laugh. Like I wasn't like, oh, I feel bad. I'm like, oh my
right.
gosh, like what? You've
Well,
got
and but what you just said is really interesting. You said maybe it was a bot, I don't know. And that's, that's another thing that's so disorienting
yeah.
in this landscape. And what I was going to maybe, I'm going to ask this guy if I can pass this book along to you. But okay, you were talking about your bowling, and I'm going to wrap this all into one thing. I have decided to host a monthly supper club in my town under the auspices of Brownstone Institute. And we're having our fifth or sixth meeting this in July. And so we meet monthly. People pay $50 for a buffet dinner, and there's a speaker, and we have a private room. And we're all sort of dissidents in a way because we want to be able to speak about ideas freely. And we live in a college town, and it's a very, very deeply, deeply blue college town, and you can feel very alone. And particularly after COVID, I think so. By doing this, I was doing it for my own reasons, but the bonus is that people have been saying, like, thank you so much because we can find each other. And for that 3 hours a month, we feel like we can speak freely and, find community. And what was my point? Oh, so last time at the supper club, a professor of AI and media handed me a manuscript, and he said, I wrote a novel. Would you read it? And I was a little taken aback because it's a lot to ask somebody to read an over 300-page novel. But the premise is,
Yes.
this goes back to the AI bot thing. It's in the future somewhere, and these villages that are surviving and living like the old ways, they're deeply Catholic. And so the Eucharist is the way to connect them to the corporal body, the physical body, and keep them out of what is the hive. And the hive is the city where it's like the Matrix, but it's like they want everybody plugged into the hive, and you don't know what's human, you don't know what's not human. And long story short, there were a couple of people who got plugged into the hive for a while, and at the end, they're liberated and they come back to their village. But here's the thing that really blew me away is that they were never right again. They were never right
Yeah.
again. And so they had to wait until they could find their reward in heaven. It was a faith-based thing, but real life wasn't quite enough. Even though they knew that when they were in those chairs and they were having virtual life, they didn't know if it was real, or they thought people were human, but everybody was dead. They were all bots. So, it was a really interesting book, and it sort of changed the way I look at Twitter. It changes the way I look at all social media. But the downside is it's just one more way for me to be disoriented
Yeah,
in this landscape. So what you're saying about going bowling, hosting a supper club, doing small things in real life, it tethers you to your own humanity, when increasingly people are trying to separate you from that to further either their profit agenda or their narrative agenda, whatever it is. So,
and there is real value. I mean, there's a lot in what you were talking about with the Eucharist.
it's
I do get a lot out of the sacrament, and it could be that the vax is the thing that, that's what I was saying. Like, the worst thing is that the vax is inside you. Like, the social media and stuff is in your brain, and the vax is in your body. Like, they're really attacking on all.
Yeah, and now they want to put other things in our bodies, which, like the whole wearable notion, with Bobby Kennedy coming out and saying, he meets with 7 tech bros 4 weeks ago, and now we're going to launch the biggest ad campaign for all Americans to be having wearables in 4 years. And that just, it blew my head off my neck, because I mean, that's a whole other rabbit hole. And I think that increasingly there is pressure on us to decouple from normal life. Like, I find myself looking back at my childhood. I mean, I'm old, but I'm like not that old, but I find myself nostalgic for times when we didn't have phones, and you didn't have to do big things and get attention and get clicks, and it's so unhealthy. But once you've been brought along into that, and this froth of right, left, bad, good, hate you, I'm right, you're wrong, it's very difficult to calm down and be peaceful and live a human life. I don't even know what that means anymore. If it's hard to find a way back there.
Well, still now, I have a few things to say on what you're saying. I want to say, like, the wearable stuff, I think what's going to create a bridge to that is they do not care from COVID or whatever, the impact on your eyes and ears of what we're doing constantly, whatever kids are doing constantly, Zooming, social media. So my thought is, like, with the war, they blow your arms and legs off, and then you've got all these prosthetic advancements. But now they don't care about kids' eyes and ears. They don't tell you to mellow out, and because they want to create a need for that, and they will, just as an aside. But as far as, like, the smartphones and the social media and all the stuff that plug us in, my kids, and I don't know about your son, but are kind of sick of it. Like, they're over it, and that's good. Now, I don't know if we're in a period of great transition where eventually human beings will basically physically adapt to being digitized, or if they're trying and it just isn't sticking.
God, I hope it's the latter, because
it could be.
I hope so. My son, he's 25, and he has no social media at all. And we did not allow him to have a smartphone till a few years after his friends did. And he will thank us now all the time, because he tried Instagram for like 20 minutes and he realized it was compare and despair, made him highly anxious. He just didn't want it. And he doesn't have it. He is on screens a little bit more than probably I was at that age. And kids that age don't read. They don't read pages. And the sad part about that is I think reading a book is a respite. Watching a movie is not. It's a refuge. It's a place to, it's just a nice place to rest.
My kids read books, paper books. I really made that a priority. You can't force them to do it. But
I tried really hard. We read a lot, but he's just not a reader.
Well, okay. Well, that's definitely a thing. So, but my kids, I sent them to this very traumatic, like, outdoor camp when they were little.
You mean like Outward Bound at age 4?
Yeah, something like that. But it was like super low rent. Like, we just walk around in the woods and hope for the best, like, it would pick us up in a week. Like, they'd come back not having brushed their teeth and, like, well, there's no water. I was like, But I was stupid like that because I'm the youngest of 9. So I had no model of like how to adapt. It was basically that like, well, I hope you're here tomorrow. My parents left one of my brothers in Grand Canyon. Like they had to come back. He was like 3 or 4 years
Oh
old
my
because they
God.
had like 8, 10 people in the car.
Right.
And then 2 hours later, they go back in the restaurant. He's sitting at the counter eating ice cream
Oh my
because somebody,
gosh.
they just waited. They knew people would come back. But that's how a little benign neglect or malignant neglect, I don't know.
I think it's benign, and I think it's very
Yeah.
helpful for kids.
But the kids were so deprived of any kind of stimulation, and they didn't have phones till they were 13 or whatever,
Yeah.
that I gave them stuff like Shogun and everything. I was like, just here you go. Here's a really
Yeah.
long book with like Count of Monte Cristo. Like, you're going to love it. You're going to be forced to read it. It's the only book you have. My brother was in jail once, and I sent him. He was in jail for whatever, drugs and
Whatever.
it's a long story. But I was like, oh, I can only send him one book. I don't know why. I was like, there were rules and it had to be soft cover or whatever. So I was like, what's the thing that would just really take you forever to read? So I got him the history of the oil industry.
That seems pretty specific.
It was just the biggest book at Barnes and Noble. And it's so funny because he's like a savant now. Like he'll tell you, every time. I'm sure he read this giant book 3 times. It was the only book that got through the whole 6 months.
Well,
and it's just
not
funny.
much to do in prison.
If you're forced to, and that's what you've got. But the problem is, that's why I at least say no phones in cars and kitchens. Look out the window, pay attention to your food. But
talk with the people you're having a meal with. Yeah, we never had that.
Can't resist.
Okay, I want to make sure I get to the question before we wrap in a few minutes. I want to keep this around 40, 45 minutes. I know you have time constraints. You do a lot of analysis of current events. You read the newspaper so we don't have to. You suss out the stuff on the top to get to the truth. You do it in such a way that remains true to your first principles, to your moral compass, to, you don't get caught up in the right and left. How do you observe all that without absorbing it? How do you not walk around in a constant state of outrage at how many lies are being told and how deep the corruption is?
I've been criticized for not letting it get to me.
Not by me.
Thank you. People's like, you're laughing, whatever. And I'm like, I'm laughing because some of these games they play are so transparent. It's laughable. So when
I know, and the fact that people get caught, it's amazing how people believe all of it. So of course, I did it once, so there's that. But go on.
Yeah, believe it and internalize it. And you have to have the discipline to realize that you can't change it. So I do have to satisfy myself with saying, I am speaking out. That is not nothing. Because I talk about, like, I think I've made this analogy, like social media and listening to podcasts and stuff is to politics and civics what video games are to sports. You're not really
right.
You're not really doing anything. And that's me. That's what I'm doing. So I have to hope, I have to believe. So one of the things my mother said, I've told you before, when she was dying was, ask yourself, what do I have to give?
And then give it.
Yeah. And I have this analytical ability because I'm really like a math person. So a lot of podcasters in the beginning were musicians. They had the equipment, and journalists.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Even now. Yeah. And, journalists are English majors. I'm a math person, so I can, but I could also write. So I can bring analytics, and then I take the 10 commandments or the 2 commandments and the Bill of Rights, and I just try to get to first principles. And it's an analytical exercise. So when I read the newspaper, it's kind of fun because I'll be like, oh, that's bullshit. Like, I know that's not even true, and I'm going to prove it. And then I tweet it and I feel satisfied. So, and I've been thinking about Ted Kaczynski's power principle. Like, you have to do something that's meaningful, that's difficult, that's attainable, and that's autonomous. So I can do all those things. So I feel
that's going to help me. Thank you.
Yeah, I actually wrote that down for this conversation. I have to always look it up to make sure. Yeah. So you can just Google the power principle of Ted Kaczynski, and And you'll find that like autonomy is so important. So the biggest liberties for me are not working for someone I don't like, not living with someone I don't like. I'm going to be able to take a whole lot of dystopia if I don't have to go Dr. Zhivago and have a bunch of people living in my house. I will live in a tiny house by my tiny room, but don't put like 6 assholes who are mean to me in it, because
I don't even want one asshole that's mean
yes,
to me. I
exactly.
mean, I don't
No,
need
I
six.
know, I know.
One is too
Yeah,
many.
a lot of divorces in the world.
No, I
So
live with a really,
yeah.
I live with a person who's very, very nice to me.
Yes,
So,
and
yes.
it's so important. So I just like, it offends my dignity to be insulted. Like in real life, the thing on Twitter was funny in my opinion, and I like that. And
That's different than having
yeah,
somebody in your space or having
yes.
to do things that go against your morals.
So
Because, like,
those
because you need a job or whatever it is.
yes, or there's a law that says you can't quit. Like those, that's not unheard of in human history, in modern history. There are
Yeah.
laws that you have to take this job. They probably had them on the books for COVID. Like nurses can't quit if they need to be
Mhm.
called into service. I don't know if I saw any, but it existed in World War II in England. So so the work itself, I find satisfying because I think I'm good at it and it adds value, and
Mhm.
especially during COVID. And so this, just like you, that was just an opportunity that arose, that I was positioned
Mhm.
to help people. And then I got many, many, many emails. You're keeping me going. You helped me resist the vax. You helped me use the right words. You told me about Joni. Like there are people who there was real value there. I don't know
Mhm.
when that opportunity is going to come up again, but I'm there for to just use my talent. So here's my basic touchstone. I don't know if St. Peter is at the pearly gates. I don't know if there are pearly gates. I don't know if I'm going to be able to know my own name after my brain is rotting in a casket. I really have no idea. But I
Let's just do the
know,
thought experiment.
yes, and
You're at the
I
pearly
know,
gates.
yeah, I have a soul. I can tell I have a soul.
Yeah, that's
So
so important. Oh,
yeah.
and we
So
didn't
what
even
is
get
that?
to that, but
Yeah,
anyway,
I have
go
a
on.
soul. And it's fed by good. It wants to be good. It grows when it's good. I don't, I sleep better at night when I'm good. Like it's like the idea of plumb and level. A skyscraper, if it's plumb and level, you can tell by looking at it,
Right.
because otherwise it's a pile of rubble. And when people are like getting, have psych issues, maybe it's chemistry, but maybe it's how you're
Is it
living
right.
doesn't make
Yes.
sense. Like these young girls, I think these 18-year-old girls, like young American white Christian girl, like, they're just being told that they suck, and they're acting like idiots, pretending they're gay or whatever if they're not. And it's cognitive
Right.
dissonance.
Right.
So for me, I just feel like on the one hand, I want to use my particular gifts, and I have the opportunity to do that in a way that I don't really have to get paid for it. Thank you. Hat tip to the nice guy I live with.
Right.
And but underneath it all, I know I can't control the world. I'm definitely not going to be able to control the world beyond the grave. I can
Oh,
only
what a
yeah.
profound point.
Yeah, and I
So
can't
true.
I can't control. So all I can do, as my friend Scott Williams says, like die with dignity. I just want to live a life that it's like the smoking. I didn't quit, I had to quit smoking again recently. I didn't quit smoking because I'm afraid of cancer or heart attack or whatever. I quit smoking because I could not breathe at night. Like I got just so congested in this dry
Right.
environment. I couldn't breathe at night. So that's why, that's enough for me of why um I feel like if you, and I really hate talking about this in this way because it sounds like I'm saying like I'm so good, I live a good life.
I know
I got a
it
tone
does
of
not
voice,
sound
I
like
bitch,
that.
blah blah blah, but I feel like the great curative is a little thing like taking the kid bowling, or teaching my children well, modeling good behavior, not being lazy. I'm really lazy. So I feel like if I get up and do stuff, I probably overcompensated by now, but if I get up and do stuff, like I feel like I've done something
Right.
to refine myself and my soul. And if I can do that and, add the analytics and pray for world peace sincerely with real energy in the world, encourage other people to do the same, then if the devil wins at the end of the day, and let's just use it in that term, whether it's the devil or something else, or just greed or whatever, if it wins at the end of the day, you know, you only had 80 years, 90 years ever to start out with. You're not getting any more than that. So do the best with that. And I mean, I don't like mosquito bites. I don't like not having air conditioning. Like if I were suffering, even in those small ways, I may sing a different tune, but it doesn't take much in this rich society. You should be grateful for it
Oh,
to
yes.
not have constant, chiggers and stuff. Like if
Well,
you're not
constant
in,
misery, or we're not
yeah,
getting bombed. We can feed ourselves. I mean, a
yes.
million things. Yeah.
And we still have access to brandied cherries and a good cocktail, you know? I mean, really appreciate those things because they might be gone overnight and you're really going to want to appreciate it. And you might have a better sense of security if you're slightly prepared.
Right.
So think about electricity and water and the things that I learned, like keep your house neat, like literally keep the aisles clear because it might be dark. Just live in a state of preparedness, not enjoy those comforts, prepare for it's like when I'll leave you with this. When I had my son who had Down syndrome and I was really devastated.
Because you did not
no,
know that was going to happen.
they
That
actually
wasn't on your
told me
radar.
he
Yeah.
did not have Down syndrome. So,
Right.
I was depressed for a long time. And after that, I mean, I was really cured when I brought my daughter home from the hospital, which was 2 years later. But I just remember the thought occurring to me for a long time. I was just really never got depressed again. And I said, every day without a tragedy is a great day.
Oh.
And tragedy can be around every corner. So,
Oh, it's true.
yeah,
Things happen very quickly.
any day that isn't bad is good.
Well, on that note, wow, this has been insightful and helpful and just delightful, Monica, truly.
Joni,
I
you
know
give me too much credit.
I really mean it. I really mean it. I'm going to get emotional. So before we go, tell people where they can find you, and then I'll put all those in the show notes. And I will definitely be inviting you to talk to me again.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm honored and privileged to be in one of your inaugural shows. I appreciate it very much.
You are my podcast doula. This is the maiden voyage.
It is your baby, and I'm sure it'll be beautiful and healthy and nurtured and grow.
I hope so.
And so I keep it simple. Anywhere you want to find me, if I'm there, it'll be Monica Perez Show. So Twitter at Monica Perez Show, Substack, MonicaPerezShow.com. And I do a little instant stuff like that, but really just, I like to tweet. I like to do the Substack and, I do have a commercial free option on iTunes. So,
okay. Well, great. Well, thank you so much. And I hope that you have a tragedy-free good day.
Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.